The richest people on earth have a dirty little secret. They don't pay taxes, not because they hide money, not because they break the law, but because they figured out a way to get millions of dollars handed to them. And the IRS doesn't even consider it income. Today I'm going to show you a strategy that's been used by billionaires for over a century. It has a name, it's called buy, borrow, die. And in 2026, thanks to a new law that just passed, it's more powerful than it's ever been before. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how it works, why banks are completely fine with it, and why regular people never hear about it. So make sure to stay until the end, leave a like, and let me start with a number. Between 2014 and 2018, the 25 wealthiest Americans in the country watched their fortunes grow by a combined $401 billion. And in those same years, they paid just $13.6 billion in federal income taxes. That works out to an effective tax rate of about 3.4%. To put that in perspective, if you earn $60,000 a year, you're probably paying closer to 22% in federal taxes. Not 3.4%, 22%. So what's going on? Are they breaking the law? No. Are they hiding money in some offshore account? Not exactly. What they're doing is using the tax code exactly the way it was written. And the strategy they're using doesn't require any fraud, any loopholes that are about to get closed, or any shady moves. It's completely legal, it's been around for over 100 years, and the government keeps it alive on purpose. Here's the problem though. This strategy only works if you already have something. And that's the catch. The system doesn't reward how hard you work. It rewards what you already own. So if you're someone who earns a paycheck and pays off your debts on time and does everything you were taught to do, you're being played. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because the rules were written for a different kind of player. Let me explain from the beginning. Most people think of debt as a necessary evil. You need a car, you don't have $20,000 sitting around. So you go to the bank, borrow the money, and then spend the next 5 years paying it back, plus interest. And here's what makes that painful. You're paying for a car that loses value the second you drive it off the lot. 3 years into the loan, the car might be worth $10,000, but you're still paying interest on the original $20,000. And here's the part that nobody really talks about. Where does the money come from to make those payments? Your paycheck. But before you even see that paycheck, the government already took their share. If you're in the 22% federal tax bracket, for every $100 you earn, you're only taking home $78. And then you use that $78 to pay a bank, which is also charging you interest on top. So you're getting hit twice. Once by the government and once by the bank. All while the thing you bought is getting cheaper every year. That's the trap that most people live in. And nobody teaches you this. You go to school, you learn how to read and do math, but nobody shows you that the system is set up in a way that makes it very hard to get out of that cycle. Now let's flip this completely. Imagine you own $10 million in assets. Maybe it's a mix of stocks and real estate. You need $500,000 to live comfortably for the year, travel, bills, whatever you need. You have two options in front of you. Option 1, sell some of your stock. Sounds simple enough. But here's what actually happens. That stock you're selling, you bought it years ago when it was worth much less. So the IRS calls the difference between what you paid and what it's worth now a capital gain. And capital gains get taxed. In 2026, the long-term capital gains tax rate for high earners sits at 20%. That means to walk away with $500,000 after taxes, you'd actually need to sell closer to $625,000 in stock. You just handed the government $125,000. And those shares are gone. All the future growth they would have generated, gone. Option 2, borrow $500,000 from a private bank, using your $10 million in assets as collateral. Here's what happens when you do that. The bank looks at your balance sheet. They see you own $10 million in stable, appreciating assets. They offer you a loan at around 3% annual interest. You agree, $500,000 lands in your account. You didn't sell a single share, you didn't trigger a taxable event. The IRS doesn't count that money as income because it's borrowed money. It's a loan, not a paycheck. Your only obligation is the interest, which comes out to $15,000 per year. Meanwhile, your $10 million in assets keeps growing. If the market goes up 7% that year, which is below the S&P 500's long-term historical average of around 10% per year, Your assets grew by $700,000. You borrowed $500,000 to live on. Your assets grew $700,000. You paid $15,000 in interest. You came out ahead by nearly $200,000. And you paid zero in capital gains tax. That right there is the foundation of buy, borrow, die. Step 1. Buy the right assets. The first step is owning assets that go up in value over time, and not just any assets. Banks won't let you borrow millions of dollars against your sneaker collection or your vintage wine rack. They need assets that are stable, easy to value, easy to sell quickly if needed, and historically proven to appreciate. That means publicly traded stocks, high-quality real estate in strong markets, and profitable businesses with consistent cash flow. These are assets that banks understand. They have decades of data on them. They can predict their behavior. The stock market, over the last 100 years, has returned an average of about 10% per year. Real estate in desirable locations has consistently outpaced inflation. A growing business becomes more valuable as its revenue increases. When you own this kind of stuff, you're not just holding money. You're holding something a bank can measure, trust, and lend against. But here's the key detail that most people miss. You don't borrow against all of it. You borrow a small fraction. If you have $50 million in assets, you don't ask the bank for $50 million. You ask for $5 or $10 million. That's called maintaining a low loan-to-value ratio, and it's what makes this whole system incredibly safe for the bank and for you. Think about it from the bank's perspective. They lend you $10 million. You have $50 million in assets backing it. Even if the market crashes 30%, which is a severe crash, you'd still have $35 million in assets. The bank is completely protected. They're never at risk. And because they're not at risk, they offer you terms that most people never see. Interest rates as low as 2 or 3%. No mandatory monthly payments on the principal. Long loan terms, sometimes 10 to 20 years. They don't need you to pay it back fast because your collateral is worth 5 times what they lent you. This is the single biggest difference between how the wealthy borrow and how regular people borrow. Regular people borrow against their future income. The bank is betting you'll keep your job for the next 5 years. If you lose it, the whole thing falls apart, and that's why consumer loan rates are high and the terms are strict. Wealthy people borrow against assets they already own. The bank isn't betting on your job, it's betting on your balance sheet. And a balance sheet full of stocks and real estate is a much safer bet than someone's salary. If you're enjoying this video, remember that you can become a member of the channel with just a few dollars a month, and it can make a huge difference for me. Thank you if you do it. Step 2. Borrow without ever paying it back. Here's the part that sounds crazy but is completely real. The wealthy don't pay these loans back. Or at least not in the way you'd expect. Say you borrowed $10 million 10 years ago. You've been paying $300,000 a year in interest. The loan is coming due. Most people think at this point you're forced to come up with $10 million to close it out. But that's not what happens. You have 2 paths. Path 1 is refinancing. You take out a new $10 million loan and use it to pay off the old one. You don't sell any assets. You don't trigger a single taxable event. Your portfolio keeps growing. And importantly, inflation has been chipping away at the real value of that $300,000 annual interest payment. Money you're paying back in 20 years is worth less than money you borrowed today. You're borrowing with today's dollars and paying back with tomorrow's cheaper ones. Path 2 is refinancing and going bigger. Let's say over those 10 years, your original $30 million in assets has grown to $60 million. You go back to the bank with an updated balance sheet. They're happy to lend you $20 million this time, same low loan-to-value ratio. You use $10 million to close the old loan, and you walk away with another $10 million in fresh liquidity. The cycle just restarted at a larger scale, with 0 taxes paid. This is how generationally wealthy families live their entire lives. They never sell, they borrow, they pay interest, they refinance, and every time they do, their assets have grown so they can borrow even more. What about market crashes? This is the obvious question. What if the market tanks and your collateral shrinks? Here's why that's less scary than it sounds. Remember the low loan-to-value ratio. If you borrowed $10 million against $50 million in assets, the market would need to collapse by more than 60% before the bank was even in trouble. In the entire history of the US stock market, a crash of that magnitude has only come close during the Great Depression. The 2008 financial crisis which was the worst crash since then, saw markets drop about 57% at their lowest point before recovering. And the wealthy aren't borrowing against risky or volatile assets. They're using diversified index funds, blue-chip stocks with decades of history, and income-producing real estate. These don't go to zero, they dip, they recover, and they keep compounding over time. If things do get bad, banks will typically call you and ask you to either add more collateral or reduce the loan balance slightly. But because you borrowed conservatively to begin with, you have room to do that without it being a crisis. Step 3. Die and let the tax code work for you. Now here's the part of this strategy that is honestly shocking when you see it written out clearly. And it's also the part that's completely legal and has been sitting in the US tax code for over 100 years. It's called the step-up in basis. And as of 2026, after the passing of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act last July 4th, it is more powerful than ever. Here's how it works. Let's say you bought stock 30 years ago for $1 million. You held it your whole life. You never sold it. Today it's worth $20 million. If you sold that stock right now, the IRS would tax you on the $19 million profit. At a 20% capital gains rate, that's $3.8 million straight to the government. But what if you don't sell? What if you die while holding that stock? When you die, the IRS resets the cost basis of your assets to whatever they're worth on the day of your death. So instead of your heirs inheriting a stock with a $1 million cost basis, they inherit it with a $20 million cost basis. If they turn around and sell it immediately, they pay zero in capital gains tax, because according to the IRS, there was no gain. The stock was inherited at $20 million and sold at $20 million. The entire $19 million in gains that accumulated over your lifetime, erased, gone, tax-free. Now bring the loan back into the picture. You borrowed $10 million decades ago. You never paid it back. When you die, that loan is still active. It's a liability on your estate. But here's what happens next. Your heirs can sell $10 million worth of those inherited assets, now with a stepped-up basis, completely tax-free. They use that to pay off your loan. They still have $10 million left over, also tax-free. And they now own those assets with a fresh cost basis. So what do? They do exactly what you did. They borrow against the assets. They live off the loan. They pay only the interest. And when they die, their kids get the same step-up in basis, and the whole process resets again. This is how generational wealth doesn't just survive, it multiplies, generation after generation, through this exact cycle. And here's the 2026 update that makes this even more significant. The OBBBA, signed into law on July 4th, 2025, permanently raised the federal estate tax exemption to $15 million per individual, or $30 million for married couples. Before this law passed, that exemption was set to decrease significantly at the end of 2025. Instead, it got raised and made permanent, with inflation adjustments starting in 2027. The step-up in basis was explicitly preserved in the OBBBA as well. What that means in plain terms, if your estate is under $15 million, your heirs inherit everything with zero estate tax and zero capital gains tax because of the step-up. The loan gets paid off tax-free. They walk away with whatever's left and the clock resets. For families with estates above $15 million, there's still estate tax to deal with at a 40% rate on amounts above the exemption. But the math still works heavily in their favour compared to paying capital gains every year while they're alive. And here's something that very few people are talking about right now. Yale University's Budget Lab put out a research paper in 2025 analysing exactly how this strategy affects the tax system. They found that the top 0.1% of Americans by net worth hold enormous amounts of what they call unrealised gains, stocks, real estate, businesses that have grown massively in value but have never been sold and therefore never taxed. The step-up in basis at death wipes all of that out, generation after generation. It's not a bug in the tax code, it's a feature that has been deliberately kept in place. Congress had the chance to remove it in 2021. They didn't. The OBBBA passed in 2025 and explicitly preserved it. The people who write the tax laws are very often the same people who benefit most from them, staying exactly as they are. So let's put this all together. The wealthy buy assets that grow, stocks, real estate, businesses. They never sell them. Instead, they borrow against those assets at low interest rates, using the borrowed money to fund their lifestyle. Because loan proceeds aren't considered income, the IRS doesn't touch them. Their assets keep compounding while they pay a small interest fee, often a fraction of what they'd owe in taxes if they sold. When they die, the step up in basis resets all the accumulated gains to zero. The loan gets paid off from the inherited assets, tax-free, and their kids start the whole process over again with a clean slate. Elon Musk has pledged 58% of his Tesla shares as collateral for personal loans totaling $3.5 billion. He doesn't need to sell stock and pay taxes. He borrows. Larry Ellison has drawn a $1 salary from Oracle in recent years, while building a fortune that briefly surpassed Musk's last September. These people don't live on income. They live on borrowed money, and the tax code rewards them for it. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say, this is something you can do right now if you're starting from scratch. You need assets to borrow against. You need a balance sheet that impresses a private bank. The system is designed for people who already own things. But understanding how it works changes how you think about building wealth. The goal isn't to earn more income. The goal is to own more assets. Because owning is what unlocks the rules of the game that most people never even know exist. The game isn't rigged against you because you're not smart enough. It's rigged because nobody tells you how it actually works. And now you know. Subscribe and watch this video on screen to have more financial literacy. Just a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for educational purposes only, and any results depend on your own decisions and actions.